Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining. We're gonna wait another minute or so to let everybody join so we can start at 9 p.m. We'd appreciate it if everyone keeps their microphone off. I'll handle questions through the chat.
Alrighty, it is 7 p.m. So I'm just going to do a quick hello and welcome to everybody. Thank you all for being here. Angela and Eric are going to explain the new Poomsae rules that will be applied for 2025. They will not be effective until May 1st. So this will be used at our American Open West, American Open East, and our Nationals tournament. So just be sure that if you have any questions to let them know, and we look forward to seeing you guys at our national level competitions.
Thank you, Katie. All right. All right, everyone. So we're going to try it. There's quite a few slides, so I'm going to try to go through them quickly. Like we said, you can please feel free to put your questions in the chat, and Eric will kind of go through them later so that we can answer any questions you may have. But I'm hoping that we've put enough information in our presentation that there won't be too many questions. We worked really hard on it. I did want to start off by thanking, first of all, we've done a lot of seminars this year, and I mean camps and getting all the referees there to touch the system. So thank you all who attended those, as well as the coaches and athletes. I mean, the coaches that came out and asked a lot of questions there, we can talk to you more so than we can when we're at the event. So I really appreciate everyone who's come out this year to support our new rules. And we're super excited to try these at West. So with that, we can go ahead and start. Okay, so the first thing, we're just going to go over the board breaking updates. There's not too many, but we're going to allow Taekwondo V-necks, of course, if it's white neck, if you're color belt, or black belt, if it's, your black belt, but you can also wear the WT approved Poomsae Do box. We want to make sure that you can get from one event to the next without having to change. So that's one of the changes we've made. We've also changed our ring size to 10 by 10 from the 8 by 8 to kind of align with Poomsae, so we don't have to modify rings. And then we also expanded the presentation range from 0.3 to 1.0. Before it was 0.5 to 1.0, and it just seemed like it didn't give us enough range with some of our divisions getting really big. So this is going to allow us to give a better score presentation for the athletes. Okay, next. And so first we're going to go over the recognized Poomsae, and then after that we will start with the freestyle. Let me pull up something real quick. Okay. So, all right, let's go. All right, so starting in May, USAT, we're going to start with the black belt cadet and above. We'll perform the side-by-side. Poomsae will be drawn randomly at the ring. Black belt youth and below we will still be performing the cutoff system. The Poomsae of those will still be published prior to the event. We're hoping by next year to be able to do all black belt divisions, but this is how we're going to start this year with the timing, and then just see how everything works. So here is going to be how we're going to lay it out. So this is mandatory at the 16.0 and up part. However, these can be used at other events as well. So the individual divisions will compete simultaneously. In the final, semifinal, quarterfinal, and round of 16, there will be 2 Poomsae drawn for each match. In round of 32 and up, 1 Poomsae will be drawn each match. If a division starts in round of 64 with 33 or more contestants, then the final and semifinal will compete one at a time. That way we can actually see everything that's going on a little bit closer, since there's so many people competing. Pair and team divisions compete one at a time. In final, semifinal, and quarterfinal, 2 Poomsae will be drawn each match. and round is 16 and up, 1 Poomsae will be drawn each match. And please note, you can find all these rules. We now have these on the USAT website. So you can either take pictures here, feel free, but also note that these have all been uploaded. So you can find it there as well. One of the new things is they are allowing ear piercings now. The only thing is that they must be flush to the ear. So you can see the first one, it is a hoop, but it's completely flush to the ear. The second one's a post. The third and fourth, anything dangling will not be allowed. As well as if we see anything that we think might be dangerous, we might disallow it at that point as well. But they are allowing some of those, the two that are there. Another great thing is the bobby pins and hairpins are now allowed as long as they're shorter than 2 inches. The only thing they do not want to see are big bows on the top of the head. Of course, if they're in the back and they're small, like people put them on their buns, that's totally fine. They just don't want it on top and super large. And then obviously the alligator clips, we don't want to see those. And there is no longer a deduction for the start and an ending in different spot. And there's also no longer an accuracy deduction for a missing lead arm. We will consider this in the presentation as power will not be generated the same. Restart side by side, all previous deductions will remain. So if 2 athletes are going at the same time and one decides they want to start over, they can just start over and then continue, but all the deductions that we have scored will stay there. And then the referee and judges will deduct 2 majors from accuracy at the end of the performance. And that what that shows us is that if somebody questions, we can show that we did that due to the restart. Someone did restart during that match. So technically there's no restart. You just have to, like, we will not say, come on, if you're doing the wrong Poomsae. The athlete has to recognize it and then restart themselves, or they can choose to continue at the right spot and just take the deductions they already had. So. Here, I'm not going to read these one by one. Feel free to take pictures of them. However, if you want to look these over later, these have been out there for a while, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate that now all this 5 to 8 second slow movements you can see here, you can choose. So you have between 4 to 9 seconds for any of the pieces that are on any of the movements you see here for each of these Poomsae. So like I said, feel free to take a picture and then we'll switch to the next slide. And then these are the recommended 8-second slow movements. So if it's recommended, they would like you to follow 8 seconds. If you do shorter, it's not an accuracy deduction. However, it will be a deduction in presentation for speed. So these are the recommended 8 seconds. All these rules will be enforced May 1st at our West competition. Here, most people are aware that obviously that these are the new Poomsae. They're all updated in our packets now, so there shouldn't be any questions. We did add on the dragon, the tiger, and the youth, we added Kungan since the cadets were going up to Debek. So we figured that would be it would be good to get our youth and below up to Kungan. So that's one of the new things there. Nothing has really changed here, except again, we did add the Kungan for the dragon, tiger, and youth black belt divisions. I just put the coordinator commands here just for people to see them, but I just wanted to point out a couple things. When we call in the athletes, we'll call Chung Hong, Chiljan, and then Chidiat Kinye will bow the athletes. At that point, the Poomsae that they are going to perform will display on the screen. And then the athletes, if they feel they need to adjust, if it's a form where they need to be a little bit more forward or back, we'll allow them to adjust. And then once they stop, then we'll continue a Chumbi Sija. Same thing with the second round, Chong Hong Chiljan, Chidiep. Of course, we don't bow the second Poomsae. We'll let them, the Poomsae display, we'll let them adjust. And once they're ready, then we'll say Chumbi. The only other different thing is at the end of the competition, you've probably seen it if you watch the World Championships, is we will bow the competitors to the referees, but then we also, after Pio Chul, will go behind. The athletes have them face each other and bow to each other as well, and then face forward again, and then we'll call Chung Hong or Song Hong. So. Eric, were you going to show the system now, or did you want to do that at the end, very, very end after freestyle?
Sure, I can do that now. So
There you go.
we'll do a quick sneak peek on Poomsae Pro and how things look. So the scoring screen looks very similar to any of the side-by-side we've used for the under 30s and under 40s for a number of years. So let me move up some competitors. The biggest difference is the way the Poomsae will be displayed. And I'm going to give a little behind the scenes peek at the computer operator screen. We've got a nice draw Poomsae button. So after the athletes have entered the mat and found their spots, we'll draw the Poomsae. Now, here's what it looks like when we draw the Poomsae. Shows up nice and big in the center of the screen. This will stay displayed until we start the Poomsae timer. So once the Poomsae timer starts, the Poomsae name disappears. Then the scoring comes in just like we've seen previously, with all the referees coming in. And my apologies if I'm going slow. I have to enter in all four myself. And similarly with the presentation. So let's have those all come in. And once we're there, we'll then have next Poomsae and we'll draw the second Poomsae. Again, it shows up nice and big in the center of the screen. And we start the Poomsae timer to remove it as the athletes begin. And then the final scores will be entered in. And then it saves and displays very similar to what we've seen before. So yeah, that's really the new piece, seeing the big Poomsae display.
All right, thank you, Eric. That was
You're
great.
welcome.
All right. Heading on to freestyle. So you'll see here we have our 6 technical, which is the jump and side kick, multiple kicks and a jump. I've highlighted the 3 for the team that will include board breaking, which is the gradient of spin, the Krugi style consecutive kicks, and the acrobatic kicking. And the basic movements is still the same. So here I just kind of wanted to go over some of the things for each one. Most of you have seen this. This has been in place for a while now. Obviously, our base score is 0.7, and then we place our bonus points between it if it's body face or over face. And then on the next slide, there was one thing I wanted to mention that was brought to us. Right, and so, yeah. Here, it's always been the middle line in between the highest point of the top foot and the lowest point. We do the midline. However, one of the things they've pointed out now is if the bottom foot is touching the kicking leg, the height of the kick is the kicking leg height, which is great. However, if the jumping side kick is performed vertically, some people are like taking their kick up, it's not straight across, then we'll only score, the score will be based on the height between both feet. So I thought that was a really good clarification that I just kind of wanted to point out to everybody. Okay, multiple kicks and one jump. So this is now new. This is one of the newest things that have come out recently. It used to be the variety of kicks, but now it's actually based on how many kicks. It's going to be 3 kicks, but it can be any type of kick, 4 kicks any type, and 5 kicks of any type. However, the more variety of the kicks that you put in there, the higher the presentation will be. So you still want to put the variety in there, but if you don't, the base score it'll be based on how many kicks. But higher presentation for the better variety under creativity. Nothing's really changed. You still need the 80% knee extension. All kicks are permitted. For example, front kick, scissor, roundhouse, side, and hook kicks. The side kicks, when people are doing the scissor kicks, we're counting those as 2 kicks. Something good to know. However, it's any style kick, even if it's not listed here. It's still a minimum of 3 kicks required above the waist when compared to a standing position. Otherwise, a 0 score will be given. You need at least 3 above the waist. So here are things for the gradient. Again, it's still based on whether it's a 360, 540, and 720. However, some of the things for the base score that we take into consideration is the height, the accuracy of the execution, as well as how they land. I mean, when you land very solid, it's a higher score. If you take a step, you might get like a 0.1 off your base score. So those are kind of the things we consider. Kicks must be at least waist high. However, you can get higher presentation the higher your kick is. So like whether you get to the face, it's going to be better presentation or something we consider. For the Karugi style kicks, we get a lot of questions on what low level, mid level, and high level mean. Used to be by how many. Actually, no, that's not this one. Let's go to the next screen. I'll explain this. I wanted to go, some of this is still the same, but some of this has changed. So again, it's still 3 to 5 bounces, or otherwise it's a 0. However, more than 5 bounces will result in a presentation deduction. Sometimes we have seen people actually do 6, so that's why this rule came about. Allowed to change direction after 3 bounces, but you may not turn your back. So you must execute 7 to 10 kicks now. And one thing to remember, double kicks count as 1 and triple kicks count as 2. And then of course, whoops, less than 7 kicks would be a 0 point. So sorry, I need to correct that. Only sparring techniques should be performed in order to represent a sparring competition. Add in any other techniques before completion of sparring kicks will result in a score of 0. For example, perform an acrobatic kick or a high rotation spinning kick. So none of those should be performed before you finish your 7th kick, Karugi kick. If 6 kicks then turn back to the opponent, it would be a 0 score. You may slide forward, left. If competitor executes 7 kicks, then turns back, goes to presentation because they've completed the 7. The thing is, they always want you to pretend like the competitor is right in front of you and that you're obviously you wouldn't turn your back fully to your competitor. Considerations for good performance. Competitor execute double roundhouse, 1 to body, then immediately to face, tornado kick, spin hook, axe kick, onchagi. Always pretend like your competitor's in front of you. You may block and punch as it's considered good sparring technique, but it's not counted as a kicking technique. Consider higher presentation if kicks are continuous, not pausing too much between techniques. So they do kind of like seeing the kicks all connected. However, one of the things we're seeing is when people are doing that quickly, sometimes their kicks are landing below the waist. They must be waist height or above. So just something to think about when you're adding that speed in there. This is the one I was talking about, low level, mid level, high level. A lot of time in the past, it was due to how many kicks. So obviously we do look at how many kicks are executed in the air, plus the full routine. Was it a round off a back handspring followed by the acrobat? And then there's some other considerations on the next page. So acrobatic is not just about how many kicks an athlete can perform in the air, it's also the level of technique they perform. Kick may be horizontal and in vertical. So we saw sometimes where they would start like feet overhead and kick, but then they would come down vertical in a landing, considered a little bit higher technique. More difficult combinations can result in higher presentation, horizontal kicks, and vertical kick. There's still no boost, no lift, or no step up, and no assistance allowed in the individual and pair for these. Oh, there was something else for that one. Basic movements are, same as always. Are there enough basic hand and foot movements? We're always looking to make sure, even though we are putting some acrobatic things in there, we still want to make sure that there's still a lot of regular Taekwondo technique, that you still are performing the basics, that you balance between your hands, those type of things. Oh, and a single slope kick in motion, I have questions on this. It's not mandatory. However, it demonstrates stability of the basic movement skill, and it's rewarded in presentation under creativity. Mandatory stances, we all know, is Bukabi, Bomsigi, and Haktari Sigi. They may be performed within any part of the routine, and it's a minus 0.3 deduction if they're not there. However, one of the things that's being clarified is they must be performed clearly and accurately. They're not saying 1 second anymore, but they do want the athletes to hold the stance and not just like jump up real quick and then move on. So they want to see it performed clearly and accurately. And then for parent team, mandatory stances must be performed by all athletes at the same time. This is new since the World Championships, so we really wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. Before, as long as one person did it, we were okay, but now it's mandatory that they must all be performed by all athletes at the same time. Mandatory board break-in requirements. Sorry, everyone. Eric, you want to read through this?
Sure. So the mandatory board breaking requirements are only for the mixed team format where we've got the 5 athletes. There's a maximum of 9 boards. 3 of the technical skills are required to have breaks on them. The turning kick, the Krugi style consecutive kicks, and the acrobatic kicks, with the gradient of spin requiring a minimum of 1 board, the acrobatic kicks requiring a minimum of 1 board, and the Krugi style kicks requiring a minimum of 3 boards. These can be performed by any of the members, not the substitute for the team. Their supporting and boosting is allowed. There's a slide coming up that'll explain that in more detail. When we say piggyback, this means they're sitting, not standing, on a team member's shoulders to hold a board higher than head level. Okay.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
All right, so here we made this nice chart that you can take a picture of. Obviously, you can see an individual and pair. Supporting and piggyback and boosting is not allowed. However, on the mixed team, on the jump turn kicks, the gradient, only the piggyback is allowed, so they can sit on the shoulders, not stand. On the acrobatic kick, both are allowed. They can support and boost as well as do the piggyback. Something to consider, like for the gradient, one of the questions we get asked is because it's only required for 1 board that you need to break in your gradient. So one thing to consider is if an athlete tries to break 2 boards, but only breaks 1, we will consider that the mandatory board will be considered broken, but the score will be taken down in presentation for missing the missed attempted board. However, and another thing to note is if you want to break 2 boards, they both must be above the waist. So what we saw that got clarified was some was below, like one would be below and one would be higher. So we're really basing it on the gradient as well as then completing the board break. However, you can add those additional 4 boards anywhere you want. So just something to think about. They've talked about no dance movements, really in freestyle. All acrobatics, no matter where it is performed, the performance must have a kick. This is new. This is super important. So anytime there is an acrobatic, a spin, anything, there must be a kick with it. Otherwise, we'll take down the score on the basic movements and practicability because it's not considered really a Taekwondo move. Athletes have up to 3 seconds to set up and perform their technical element. So one of the things they were talking about, and this is with individual, pair, or even team, when you go to set up either for your jump and side kick or maybe your gradient, and you step back and it's okay to like key up and set up, but they want it to be performed within 3 seconds because anytime you've been stopped for more than 3 seconds, then at 3 seconds, then we're supposed to give a 0.3 deduction. So they want to see athletes performing their technical technique within those 3 seconds. A little bit of self-defense is permitted. However, excessive amounts will result in a decrease in presentation. The holding sticks prepared by the team are allowed only for the acrobatic board breaking. So for the acrobatic board breaking, you can have up to like 3 holders. And if you boost the person and they try to break 3 boards going overhead, that's fine. We will check them obviously in inspection just to make sure they're safe. But this is something new. How athletes set up for breaking is part of presentation. This is especially important. They were talking during the Krugi style consecutive kicks. They that how you set it up. That way you're not leaning down to pick up a board. If you're consistently just one board, the next board, and they're breaking them consistently, it just looks better. Otherwise they're breaking the harmony. All boards must be kept inside of the boundary line, and consecutive kicks for team must be performed by one team member along with the 3 required breaks. So at least one person on the team has to do the mandatory 7. So it can't be one team member do 4, one team member do 3. One person must do at least all 7 and break the 3 required boards. And then if you add boards elsewhere and they come in like beside the person doing the 7, that's fine. But you just have to have at least that one person. Mandatory board breaking requirements, unsuccessful board breaking. If an athlete misses the mandatory board, so it does not break, they will only receive a base score from up to that 0.7. They will not receive any bonus points there. However, if they touch the board, but it does not break, they will just be given a minus 0.1 deduction on the bonus score. So if we were going to award a 0.3, then we would take it down to like a 0.2 or whatever the case might be. So we've gone back to the old way where we can have sounds and all kinds of animal sounds and neat things in the music. However, there's still no lyrics, which also no words, no humming, loud exhales, whistling, anything that's verbal just cannot be in the music.
Okay, and that's the end of the slides.
Oh, awesome.
So I don't see any questions in chat at the moment. I'll give people another minute or two if they want to type out any questions, so we make sure we get anything answered. So please use chat and send the questions. Do you have any closing thoughts, Angela?
Yeah, please note that we will have a referee seminar, Karugi and Poomsae, at our, not at the west, but we will have it at our east. And coaches and athletes are welcome. Please, if you want to come and ask questions as well. And also we encourage all the referees, of course, that haven't attended one yet. We will also have the same at nationals this year, before nationals, at Karugi and Poomsae. So please, we welcome everybody to come to those. It's not just referees. We want everybody to come, and at that point, we can give you any feedback that you would like. But once we're on the mat, of course, we're official and we can't do it at that time. So.
Right. And the other really good thing about the seminars are you get a chance to play with the scoring system so you can see the other side of it and how all of it works, because we just kind of gave the athlete view tonight and we'll show the referee view at the seminars. I see we have a question. Do we know when the recording of the slide presentation will be posted? And USA Taekwondo, Katie just said it'll be posted on Facebook and YouTube. Timeline, I'm assuming within the next day or so.
That's fairly quick. Usually it's like 2 days at the most.
Yeah. So right. So it should be available, before the regionals. In freestyle, if I have a combo with a kick, does it count as a kick?
And the variety of kicks, or?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the question is asking. Which particular technical element are you asking about?
If you're talking about the variety of kicks, if you do the scissor kicks, that's considered 2 kicks, and then a roundhouse would be your third. If that's the one that you're talking about. We talked about the Karugi, so I'm assuming that's the one that you're asking.
Okay, it seems like there aren't that many questions. So I guess we will wrap it up for the evening. We appreciate everyone joining to go over these rules updates. We know there's quite a lot of changes coming for regionals. So if you have any additional questions that you think of after, please don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah, thank you everyone very much for coming today. I appreciate you being here. We're super excited. I can't wait to see everybody in May. So we'll see you soon. Mark.
Okay, and